everyone, welcome back to Katarina's Garage. My name is Katarina Lloyd, and look what's back in my driveway. So, this was my old car. If you're wondering, no, I didn't buy it back, I'm just borrowing it. Because if you didn't see in my previous video to this, well, my Mustang is currently down. Like Stitch, because trying to put a header in it, you think it'd be a good idea, but then 6 snap bolts and the header not actually fitting later, and it just doesn't work out. But, anyways, let's go over this car. Let's reminisce a bit of my time with this car before I inevitably have to give this car back, which will be before May 4th, because hopefully my car will be done by then, and then we can figure out what to do from there. So, as you can tell, this car is a 1986 Ford Mustang LX convertible. This car is it's got 207,000 kilometers on it. It's got some condition issues, like you can see, the door is starting to go, the rear quarters at the bottom and underneath the rubber trim is starting to go. It needs a top, but really, it's one of these things where I only got rid of this car just because I could not really afford to run it at the time, and not only that, but I wanted to give it indoor storage, which I could not give it here, obviously, because that top is taking quite the beating, and it lets in a lot of water when it rains and when you wash the car and stuff, so you have to be really, really cautious with washing this car. Now, this car was born with 3.8 V6, but now it's the furthest thing from that. So granted, it's nothing special engine. It's just a 302, and it's not even a high output 302. This thing on the dyno made 175 wheel horsepower with the tweaks that have been done to it. It's got an Edelbrock Reformer intake, Holley 600 carb. It's going to be getting an HEI distributor. It's got these really awesome valve covers. It's got stock style headers on it. It's got an MSD box with the MSD coil. Again, it needs to be detailed under here quite severely. It's got these Street Fire wires. Majority of this that I kind of did, or at least paid for, other than the MSD stuff that was actually just a gift when I owned the car. And then the Holley technically was on it. It had an Edelbrock Reformer on it, but however, I swapped it to this cool old vintage Shelby intake when I owned this car, and then when Keith got it back, he swapped it to another Edelbrock Reformer. But yeah, inside, you have a majority of your amenities, although sadly, as you saw to the hood, the cruise control is no longer in it, nor is the AC. But it still can do one really awesome thing. And you might wonder, well, what that is. And that's pretty simple. That is this. Because not only should it just start right off the button, it's got an electronic fuel pump in it. Oh, needs a couple pumps. There we go. And now, that magnificent sounding 302. Stock cam, you know, nothing too special that way. It's a 600 carb underneath the hood. And it's not even kicked all the way down, actually, fun fact. Now, the tach doesn't work in the car because of the MSD box. Like, some of these, you know, some of these require you to get this tach adapter for them, but... And this one is no exception. Like, again, it's not every vehicle that you put an MSD into, but some of them will require that. Now, what happened with this vehicle? So, how I initially acquired it was I owned this Capri, actually. I owned it for less than 24 hours, technically. It was a 1984 Capri 302 CFI car. I got it for selling some vehicles for a friend, and that was the payment for it. It was not running. I didn't realize how bad that car actually was. I was recovering from my surgery at the time, so I couldn't really look it over as well as I would have liked. And the entire underside of the car was roached out. Shock towers were gone. You know, the engine was seized. Frame rails were shot. Everything, right? But it had a really clean body up top. Like, it was so deceptive. Very deceptive. And it's not like it had a repaint ever in its life. I'm pretty sure that was original paint. It was just faded to orange. So that, you know, I traded that for this, but at the time, this was bone stock with 3.8 V6. It still had all of its factory emissions on it. Even though, like, the smog pump did seize up, but then my buddy had a smog pump on the shelf, and he swapped that in, which is kind of funny, to be honest. But, because you'd think, well, why don't you just delete the smog pump? Because all you really need to do that is a little block-off plate, and, you know, a different belt. But he was like, he had one on the shelf, swap it, it's just a little simpler. So fair enough. It had a killer exhaust tone to it. You know, it sounded like a 302. It actually sounded kind of similar to this 302. With the 3.8 V6 that happened to have the CFI injection system on it. Now, because I'm just waiting for this thing to warm up so I can kick it down properly so you can hear that cold idle as it should be, because it's still a little higher. But, yeah, so the 3.8 was starting to give issues. It was burning oil. It was sending gas straight down into the oil pan. And eventually I seized that engine before I sold it to a guy. I sold that, you know, this car to a guy that owned a shop in Calgary. Well, he was going to give it to his, I think it was either girlfriend or wife. I can't remember. But about 4 months later, I got the car back from him. It was a swapped-in 302. It's like, oh nice, it's an 86 302, which is not the best year, but be fine. No big deal. Right? Everything should be copacetic. He said there's just like a few things to button up, and you could tell, like, you know, the kickdown wasn't pumped up, and there's a few other things with it. No big deal, right? Well, driving it around a bit, after we kind of did a little bit, we realized that the guy used a TFI distributor with a carburetor. It had nothing to talk to. So it would not advance the timing correctly, so it would just run like absolute crap because of it. Not only that, but then there was a misfire because the fuel pump was connected to the coil, and there was a few other things. We basically redid everything he did, including the wiring for the fuel pump. But, and then we put the MSD stuff in it, whatever else too. And it's just, yeah, that was very disappointing. But then, so we finally get this thing like with an HEI distributor in it, and just enjoying life with it. Well, then it comes to the point of, you know, it needing, sorry, my brain's not working there, give me a second. It needed a motor. Because the guy swapped in a really bad engine. It turns out, this engine, because I didn't really get a lot of miles into it, and then once everything was fixed under the hood, once Keith did his tuning to it, whatever else, I was driving it back from Edmonton. I didn't even get it to Red Deer, and the blows a little rat hose. Now, I thought the motor just blew up at that point until I got it back to the house and realized, hey, look, it's like that. But then I ended up pulling the dipstick. Actually, was that when I pulled the dipstick? No. Yeah, no, I did. I pulled the dipstick and realized, because I just changed the oil, and it burned a liter of oil within less than 100 kilometers of driving. So, we decided, let's swap the engine out. So this engine's out of an 88 T-Bird. You know, swap to a carburetor. And now I can be able to do that. Yeah? Yeah. This thing sounds pretty good. But, so, we do, like I mentioned, we do all that, right? And it took us, it was a few days to actually swap the engine out. I had limited energy levels, I still do, and Keith has major back issues, so it's one of these things where, like, we call ourselves, like, Two Cripples Garage as, like, a joke between the two of us, and it's just kind of funny. But this car, I love this car, I still do, and I regret that trade. Even though at the time it was a good trade. Kind of. Backwards for me, but the reason why I did it makes sense. So, if you remember the Poltermerc, because I traded the Poltermerc for this. Now, Keith kept the Poltermerc in his name, which the Poltermerc, if you don't know, was a 1981 Mercury Capri, 200 inline 6, C4 automatic, right? And a 7.5 rear end with 273s, I believe. That car, Keith got it to where it's like, hey, it's pretty good, but then it wasn't. It needed a lot more work, even though, like, we replaced basically everything on the car, but yet the carburetor was overfueling really bad, going through spark plugs like crazy, fuel economy was bad, and then lo and behold, oh, there's debris stuck in the gas tank. Well, it kept getting stuck in the pickup of the tank, and it would just leave me stranded. So, and one too many times of that, I got sick and tired of it. I sold it to a guy named Dave. Now, Dave, he's gotten it running and driving again. He swapped out the carb. He did some tuning to it, whatever else, and, you know, it's good now. But, you know, when you just are tired of a car, and then plus the rust that it needed rust repair everywhere. Roof skin, A-pillars, front fenders, doors, rear quarters, even the hatch was rusty. Underneath it was pretty solid, but all of that was rusty. So, that's one of the reasons why I got rid of it, because I didn't want to put all that time and money into it if it was just going to end up being, you know, just an absolute money pit when it came to some of the cosmetics with it. Because it was just supposed to be like a nice daily driver and get good fuel economy, whatever else, and just like, okay, cool. You know, and then it's a little beat up, so it's not a big deal, and I could drive that instead of driving Stitch. Actually, I'm going to give this thing a bit of a detail under the hood there. But, at some point. But, yeah, no. You know, it's just one of these things, and now, with that, and then, like I said, I sold it. It's all good now. But then, reason why I have this back is because, like I mentioned, the header swap was just disastrous so far. I'm going to get my buddy Roy Marco to fix it. It might be next week, not this week, but we'll see. And, yeah, we'll go from there, and then hopefully get that back and get the exhaust all buttoned up and just have a wonderful driving sounding car with a lot more power than stock. Plus, it will have the HDI distributor in it, and life will be really, really, really good. So, with all that in mind, thank you so much for watching this video and seeing my girl Lilo again. I miss this car, like I said, a ton. Having it back here and driving it, because like I said, I'm just borrowing the car while my car's down. And this is the car I'm most familiar with. I know just about every inch of this car. Because I spent a lot of time in it. And I put, for reference, like Keith owned this car for like 5 years and didn't even put on 5,000 kilometers on it. I owned it for like, in the first year that I owned it, I put on, I think it was 12,000 kilometers on this car. I drove it everywhere. I loved it. I loved having the top down. You know, want to go to Vulcan? Sure, let's go to Vulcan. And want to go to Edmonton? Sure. Calgary? Why not? You know, just everywhere, right? And with a 3.8, it got decent fuel economy. This little motor, it gets okay economy. At 23 miles per gallon Imperial, which is like 19 or 18-ish, maybe even 17 US miles per gallon. And, you know, because it doesn't have an overdrive. This has a C5 automatic, the original automatic that was on the 3.8 V6. So basically, it's got a lockup converter. Even though the shifter looks like that it is a overdrive shifter, I promise you, it does not. But let's just take you off the stand here for a second. And, because yeah, like now, all of the bright work has faded to, you know, to gray. And he's put these 10 holes on it, which look pretty good. But I still prefer when the black stars are on it. Like, these back tires are just big and wide. They're 255 60/15s, so they don't rub like my 275s do. But yeah, and like, you know, the interior's a little faded. The trim piece is right there that's missing from the windshield here. I don't know why it flew off, but it did. You know, and just a nice place to be. Now, the top seals like crap, to be honest. It's very, like, it's actually quieter if you have the top up, the top down but the windows up while going down the highway. It's actually quieter than with the top up and with the windows up. It's wild. But yeah, it's just one of these things. And, you know, I love this car. I really, really do. And who knows? Maybe I'll get another convertible. There's a couple of prospects for convertibles that I have in mind for fox bodies, but we'll see. But yeah, because I could not pry this out of Keith's hands. I already know that. Even if I said, hey, here's $6,000. Can I buy the car? I don't think I would do it. So, but anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. And take care, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.